Life can be tough, whichever way you choose it. It's usually not an issue of choosing the easier option, but of choosing which hard option will get you the results you want. These were my thoughts as I took a very difficult decision 8 years ago, one which I am now living in the outcomes of. I am 39 and my name is Awele. I got married when I was 25 to Samson. I met him at a conference for the network marketing company whose products I sold. At the time, I had worked with the company for about 2 years and I was doing very well with it. So I had been asked to share my success story at the conference. Samson was one of the many people who came to speak to me after the event. He had just started the business as a side hustle to his job as a management accountant in a multinational organization. He was 5 years older than my 23 years at the time and was impressed at how I decided right after my HND that I wanted to run my own business. We spoke more over time and eventually got married 2 years later. By the time we got married, he had all but stopped doing the business actively, but I was growing my network and my sales steadily. I got pregnant about 4 months after we got married, and it was one of the worst experiences of my life. It started with me being very sick and unable to keep down any food at the early stages. I was a slim person, but I lost a lot of weight. It affected me in every way. I could not even carry out basic functions at home, and so my business was the last thing on my mind. It took a backseat completely. That was when I first noticed Samson's attitude towards me. There was almost a complete lack of empathy. I could not do anything on my own, so my younger sister came to stay with me. My husband would not even call me during the day to check on my welfare. And even when he returned from work, he would carry on as if everything was normal. My sister prepared his meals and he mostly related with her, except when he had to take me to the hospital. They usually say pregnancy sickness ends in the first trimester, but for me, it was not like that. It lasted all through the pregnancy, and I was admitted a number of times. It was evidently an inconvenience to Samson, and what I saw from him was more of disdain than concern. Eventually, when my baby was born at 38 weeks of pregnancy, he was quite small. Thankfully, he had no congenital issues, but he needed a lot of attention. My business had taken a severe hit. I still made some residual income, but it was nothing near what I made before. And even after the child, I did not have the energy or time to commit to rebuilding it. I was afraid to get pregnant again, but I did not want only one child, so I decided to just get it over and done with so that I could focus on other parts of my life. I got pregnant again when my son was 15 months old. It was not as stressful as the first one, but I was lethargic most of the time. This time, I had identical twin girls. We hired a living help in her mid-20s after they were born. All through this time, I had managed myself on my savings. My husband took care of household expenses, but I had to take care of myself on the savings I had and the little residual income I made from the efforts of the team I had built, although this had been severely impacted because I was not making enough personal sales to qualify for all my bonuses. I found myself with little funds and a dwindling relationship with my husband, and he kept getting worse. He insulted me at every little opportunity, calling me lazy and telling me I was a burden to him. He never hit me, but his words dealt blows to my heart and to my self-esteem. I had very few friends apart from my acquaintances in church, and no one was really close apart from my mother and my sister, who did whatever they could for me and kept encouraging me. My son was 5 and my daughters were 3 when I took a very tough decision, because I realized that if my life continued on its current trajectory, I would suffer in the long term. I did not consult with anyone before I took my decision, because I knew they would try to stop me. One morning, after the children had gone to school, I left my home. The school bus usually picked and dropped them off, so I knew they would be fine. I packed my essential items into 2 suitcases, left a note for my husband on our bed, and left the house in a cab. I rented a room on the campground of our church for a few days while I took time to find a self-contained apartment for myself. For the first week, I did not pick or return anyone's calls. In fact, the only reason I left my phone on was so that they would know that I was fine. Eventually, when I picked my husband's call after a week, he was raining brimstone and fire, telling me what a bad mother I was for leaving my children and threatening me with an ultimatum to return to the house. I let him finish talking and I did not respond to him. I think it shocked him a bit. My mom called, our pastor called, and I told them all the same thing, that I would not return until we clarified and resolved the dynamics of our marriage, and also that I needed time to get my life back on track. I did not disclose my location to anyone, not even my family. But when meetings were called between us, I would show up. By the end of 3 months, my husband was pleading with me to come back home. But I insisted on us attending counseling sessions, which he agreed to. We found a counselor and were both committed to attending the sessions. I got a job about 6 months after I left home, and I started to reconnect with my network in my business. Eventually, I moved back home after a year and 2 months of being away. I knew I took a risk, but at the point I left, it was a life or death situation for me. I was ready to lose the marriage if necessary. I could not afford to take the children at the time, and I knew they would be fine with their father. He loved them so much and would lay down his life for them if it came to it. And I would come back for them when I was settled. Thankfully, it did not get to that. My life has taken a tremendous turn for the better, and my marriage is almost a dream. We still have our differences, but we treat each other with plenty of mutual respect. I took an online master's degree, and I am now in a very good job which pays me well. I still do my network marketing business, but not on the same scale I used to. My husband offered to buy me a car when I returned home, but I refused because I needed to prove my capability to myself. I saved up and bought myself one. And last year, my position in my new job came with an official vehicle. I am glad things turned out well, even though I recognize that I took a very dangerous gamble. What are your thoughts about how Awele handled her situation? Please share in the comments below. Remember to subscribe to my channel and to turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of my videos.